Well, the North Korean showdown heats up. The rogue nation threatening to strike the United States with nuclear weapons at any signs of American aggression. President Trump fired back with a firm warning, tweeting this morning, quote, North Korea is looking for trouble. If China decides to help, that would be great. If not, we will solve the problem without them. Exclamation point, USA. Joining me now to discuss, Ron Christie, Bruce Klingner, and along with Jessie, Jane, and Duff. Bruce, you've navigated these waters before. One of the hardest parts about this whole dilemma is the uncertainty of Kim Jong-un. And how do you game for a guy like this who's on the verge of having nuclear weapons and being able to launch them anywhere he wants?
Exactly. When I was at the CIA, North Korea was referred to as the hardest of the hard targets. A lot of things we don't know about it, but we do know that their military capabilities, particularly nuclear and missile, are growing. And they're presumably on the cusp of being able to have an ICBM that can target the United States. But as uncertain as we are about North Korea, perhaps we're even more uncertain as to how far President Trump will go in trying to prevent them from gaining that capability.
Well, Jessie, Jane, President Trump, though, saying he will go as far as necessary, even if China does not help. I should let the audience know there are reports of 150,000 Chinese troops amassing on the North Korean border, as well as recently turning back coal shipments from North Korea. Maybe that's their attempt to squeeze this regime. But how do you see this falling out militarily?
Well, Rex Tillerson clearly stated to them that if you become a threat to others, at some point there will be a response. And they've been a threat for many, many years. All of us who have served on active duty, I myself, have been to Korea. And the reality is we've been in a war state with them for some time. The fact is that we just haven't seen the reactions. What we have right now is people have to recognize if they have nuclear capability, Seoul is only 36 miles away. And you have over 25 million people living in the city of Seoul. 800 miles away is Tokyo. And in Tokyo, you have over 36 million people in the metropolitan area. That is a disaster of any means if they are hit by a nuclear weapon. And the reality is, at some point, they will be able to hit maybe the western coast of the United States.
Right, and that's the point, Ron. The clock is ticking. We all know the clock is ticking on capability in terms of both weaponry and projectile, getting it to a target they want. So at some point, a preemptive strike seems like it must happen. I would suspect it would be pretty good public support for it, but from a political point of view, how does that work?
Well, I think from a political point, good evening, Charles. I think the American people are tired of war. I think the American people are distraught to send troops in harm's way. The Gunny mentioned it very, very eloquently a few moments ago. Having been in South Korea, having been to the DMZ, this is a very, very dangerous spot in the world. And President Bush, I think, called this right nearly a decade ago, of calling this an axis of evil, or of North Korea being part of that axis of evil. Hopefully, President Trump, in his conversation with the Chinese president last week, had the opportunity to discuss North Korea, to have a very firm commitment from China to be an ally in this endeavor to keep them constrained. But I do not believe at this juncture, Charles, there is an appetite for the American people to have a preemptive strike by this administration without going through Congress, without the War Powers Resolution of striking the North Korean Peninsula.
Really? Bruce, I'm not so sure. The world knows this is a guy who's on the verge of another nuclear nuclear bomb test, rather. He's obviously shot projectiles, or at least attempted to, over and over again, despite being told not to by the world, by world governance, saying, hey, stop it, cut it out. He does not listen. He is on a mission, and that mission seems to be counterintuitive to all of humanity. To Jessie Jane's point, this is a fight we're all in, and at some point he must be stopped.
Well, North Korea is not Syria. The North Koreans likely already have a nuclear capability to target Seoul and Tokyo on their medium-range ballistic missile. They got a million-man army close to the DMZ, forward deployed near that area. They've got perhaps 5,000 tons of chemical weapons, biological weapons, etc. They have missiles that soon will be able to hit Guam, a key node in the U.S. defense of the Pacific, and submarine-launched ballistic missiles are also in development, and as we've talked about, the ICBM. So if we do a preemptive attack, all the estimates are that would lead to an all-out war, perhaps on the peninsula, with hundreds of thousands of casualties.
Wow. So it looks like we're between the real proverbial rock and a hard place. Guys, thank you all very much. Really appreciate it.